stop sharing. So we are doing security on a tight budget. I need to find my little. This is brought to you by StorageCraft. StorageCraft empowers their clients to reach new levels of efficiency and innovation, saving them time and valuable resources so they can focus on more strategic issues. That's all I'm going to read. If you guys saw the slide, kind of give you an idea of what they do. The host today is Scott James. Scott is the head of information technology for Shepherd Memorial Library in Greenville, North Carolina. Scott is a one-man band there. He is the CIO, network administrator, desktop support technician, and everything in between. So I believe Scott can probably give us a really good insight on what it's like to run IT on a budget. So I'll be co-hosting. So if anybody has questions they want to ask, they can put them in the chat. Obviously, I forgot to mention this yesterday, and we had some people that didn't know they were on mute the whole time. If you want to speak, you have to unmute yourself. You should be able to do that, I think, by if you click on your own picture, you should be able to unmute yourself to ask something. So I guess, Scott, if you want to go ahead and get us started.
All right. Yeah, the whole point of this session together is to be together and all share ideas with one another. I'm just here to kind of facilitate and move us along. And but anytime anyone wants to give input or ask their own question, this is just a big exchange of ideas for us all here together today. So yeah, this is for security on a budget, and as a one-man band, one-man shop, that is something that I do know all too well. And I'm sure there's plenty of others in the same boat here. Let me get my Zoom back the way I want it. Okay, I want to be able to see everyone. So I've got a list of things, but I didn't know. I thought I'd throw it out there at first to see if there's anything anybody else wanted to ask or bring up at first that they're struggling with right now or trying to figure out how to do that maybe they wanted to get some ideas from other people. No? Well, I guess the first thing I'll ask is, how's everybody training their users? Not as far as usage, but as far as security. And are you doing ongoing training? You doing it in-house? You getting a third-party service to do it? I know that's something that can get pretty expensive. Well, how's everybody doing that?
KnowBe4.
Yeah, that's what we've done too, KnowBe4. Been really pleased.
We're a KnowBe4 shop as well.
Yeah, when I signed up with KnowBe4, I was really surprised at how cheap it was. I had not done it before because I was expecting it to be really expensive, and we ended up getting all our users signed on like on a 3-year deal for like $1,500, something like that. It was really good, and I think it's really working. I get people forwarding me. I'm doing the fake phishing attempts with KnowBe4, and I have a really low click rate, which I'm really happy with. But I'm also getting people forwarding me the emails that came from KnowBe4 because they do pick them up as phishing, telling me, "Hey, I want you to know this made it through our network," or "Hey, is this real?" and things like that. So I really think that the KnowBe4 training is really, it's really top notch. It's really good. Right now, let me get my chat up here. Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. Anybody got any great ideas for getting people teleworking securely? What have y'all been doing to make sure that, because that's pokes an enormous hole in our security, having devices off-site alone, just having devices off-site, but what's everybody doing to try and make sure that that stays secure? Citrix with MFA.
Yeah, Gaston County, we were pretty lucky that we already had Citrix rolled out fairly widespread, so it was a easier transition for us than most to allow people to do that remotely. It's still, We have it using Duo MFA to secure the remote sessions, but everything's running inside, still has all the same rules and everything. So they helped us out a lot already being ready for that transition.
Did you send devices out with employees, or are they using their own home computers to do that?
A lot of home computers, because there again, everything's just run on site. So we kind of don't care what they're running it on. There was quite a few that we had to get a bunch of. I mean, I don't know if Ben knows the number, but we had a lot of just laptops we had to get ready to go. And for those users that weren't in Citrix, we had to use our Globe Protect and our Palo Altos for the VPN tunnels. The preference, of course, on our side was like Citrix anywhere we could, because they're again run in our servers. It never leaves. But we have, I don't know, 100, 200 users that we just threw up random laptops that I don't know where they came from. The client services guys racked up a bunch somewhere and just started handing them out.
Yeah, we like Travis said, we reused a lot of older laptops that because of Citrix, we didn't require a lot of horsepower to run those. We were able to deploy a lot of old decommissioned laptops that we pulled out of storage. In some places, we'd ordered new Chromebooks. We were able to deploy Chromebooks, which obviously are a fraction of the cost of a PC, to people to be able to use Citrix from home. Along that same vein, and it's not from this, but another thing that's allowed us to save a lot of money in the organization with Citrix is that we've deployed Raspberry Pis as desktops for a lot of our users. So
wow.
we have $120, $100 endpoint devices that we're running Citrix on as Citrix endpoints. That have allowed us to replace pretty much our allowed us to replace a lot of our our endpoints where we were using repurposed desktops or cheap desktops that were $500 or $600. We've been able to replace those with $100 Raspberry Pis. So.
Wow, never considered that.
I'm
so you're
happy
using
someone
Citrix
else
like a
is
whole. Oh, go ahead. I heard someone.
Oh, I was just saying, I'm so happy someone else is using Raspberry Pis. It's not just us.
No,
That's awesome.
We're using them. We've been really, really happy with them, and from a desktop support standpoint, we don't troubleshoot our desktops anymore. We throw them away and we put in a new one. At $120, it's more expensive to send somebody out to fix it than to just go replace it, and then maybe we'll bring it back and look at it and see if it was a user error or something. But we don't spend a lot of time troubleshooting endpoints anymore.
So just out of curiosity, what OS are you running on your Raspberries?
We're using embedded StrataDesk. So we buy them in compute. Logitech had one that was out. We did a partner, not really a partnership with them. They did a white paper on what we were doing at Gaston County, and then they got out of that business. But in compute is who we're using now. We pay a little more for the ones that support dual monitors, because everybody has to have dual monitors these days. But they're still well under $150. They fluctuate obviously because of cost of supplies now coming out of China. They fluctuate anywhere between $100 and $150, but it has built-in StrataDesk, and that includes a StrataDesk license, so we can manage them all from one console as well.
There's a good question in here in the chat from Eddie Thacker, wondering what the learning curve was like. Are these booting straight into a virtual desktop, or do they have to? What's the user interface like?
Yeah, so we have two kind of basically we have VDI and publish share desktops, so they're two different desktops to the end user, but they just boot straight into Citrix. Like there's a basically an interface within the StrataDesk. You just give it the storefront link. As soon as it boots up, it goes right in there. There's no underlying OS that we have to mess with, really. It's all configured from the console. So there's no real target for anybody to hit from a hacking or standpoint either. So it's kind of a security thing for us as well. We were using desktop lock machines for this at one point, and that still has the underlying Windows OS that we had to mess with, keep secure. But this is kind of taking that away from us as well. So,
How's the reliability?
so far, knock on wood, I don't think we've replaced any of them. We've been doing this for a little over a year, and I don't think we've had any issues. So, I mean, they've been great. Obviously there's no fans, so they're super quiet. I mean, we haven't.
And there's no reliability issues on the server end either with
Oh,
Citrix itself.
No,
Okay.
we run Nutanix on the back end, so all our stuff's on Nutanix clusters. So, yeah, obviously no issues there either. So,
Okay.
any
Pi3 Plus or Pi4?
Pi4s. We were it's a mixture. When we started, it was Pi3s, and now we're deploying the in computes are Pi4s.
Wow.
Yeah, we're using Pis, but the only thing I'm using for is to drive a security display. So maybe I need to rethink this.
I haven't gotten into messing with Raspberry Pi yet, and I know that it's something that's so cheap that I want to, and then things keep coming up, and it gets put back to the back burner. This is completely unrelated to security, but Raspberry Pi would make a really good, like for a display, like just sitting in the lobby showing what's going on, your events kind of thing. Using it for something like that?
We're using it to tap into security camera feeds and
Oh,
drive monitors in the police department. However, to your idea, Pi does have a distribution that is specifically for driving lobby displays and that kind of thing.
what are you using to drive it for the security camera viewers?
There's a open source project called Display Cameras.
Okay.
You set your Pi up to boot. You don't use the graphical mode. You set it to boot to console. And as soon as it boots up and starts the service, Display Cameras reaches out and pulls RTSP streams directly from your cameras. It has to be an RTSP capable or an ONVIF capable camera.
Okay. That's great, because right now I'm using little like mini Windows desktops for that.
I was in Hyde County as a digital messaging system as well. Obviously, if Scott, but we're a really, really rural area out here, and the digital divide in our area is huge. So we set up these Pis with the digital messaging system in all of our hotspots. So a gas bar, one of the restaurants, little things like that. And we've been using those to push out COVID-19 information because our average user or resident in this area is 60, 70 years old. So they don't get internet, they don't have social media. So we got a grant to do that last year, and we did the whole project for under $5,000.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great idea. And you just have these just in general places where people would just be so that they can see.
Yeah, and anywhere one of these older crowds would go or congregate, walk by, we've set it up. We have a little mom and pop grocery store. We set one up there. We set one up at the grocery store in Ocracoke as well, and it's worked out really well. The Pis are very versatile units. If you want to get down and play with them, it's a lot of fun too.
Cool. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to start messing with those because the more I learn about them, the more I see how versatile they are.
Yeah.
For you retro gamers, there's also a distribution for MAME for the Pis. Turn them into a little Atari 2600.
That's neat.
Yeah, the thing that really helped us deploy them in our environment, we found the StrataDesk no-touch desktop OS. It's a very versatile, you can basically make the Raspberry Pi into anything you want it to be. Through the OS, we were able to push video monitors. So we have like courtroom schedules, video camera monitors, and things like that. Set up on like one group image. So as soon as the Raspberry Pi talks back to the server, we say it's a display machine, and it automatically configures itself to be a display machine. And then we have another like just group setting that tells it to be a thin client. So if we tell it to be a thin client on the server, then when it communicates back to the server, it just becomes a thin client.
And that's running on Citrix on the back end.
We actually have VMware.
Earlier, I think when we started talking about this, we were talking about Citrix with two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. What's everybody using for 2FA that's not breaking the bank? Because that's what's kept me from it so far.
Duo.
Duo? Is that Cisco?
Now
Who owned? Do what?
it is now. Yeah,
It
Cisco
is-
bought them within
Okay.
the last couple years, I think.
Okay.
That's what we use as well.
Yeah, they're definitely the most cost-effective option we found, and I gotta say their documentation is better than any other vendor I've ever worked with. Like, it's just got a straight-up how-to for setting up with whatever you have, like your firewalls, your Citrix, or whatever. They've got great documentation.
And it's $3 a user a month is what you're looking at. So
Yeah, that's not bad.
It's not a break the bank.
And you
Bring
can
it
really
all.
deploy it on multiple applications. We started out with our VDI and we expanded it out to our NetMotion and a few different, our password reset tool and everything else. It just integrates.
And does it allow you to use just about any method? You don't need an SMS. I mean, could somebody have it call their office phone or something like that?
Yeah, basically you can put in any phone number, and you can also do like hardware tokens. You can have the app on your phone and do soft tokens. It's versatile.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think you get it's like 1,000 SMS texts per or I think it's like 1,000 per user per year or something. I know I looked the other day and we have like 70,000 of them banked because nobody uses that. So
Well,
we just use the push for most people. Anybody. So we kind of have a unique setup because we use it for Citrix and VPN. So with our Citrix user, we give you multiple options. You can use you can use the phone call, like you were saying. You can use text. You can use push, and so they can. So we can in the tokens as well for those. So we give them that option. With our VPN, you have to have a smartphone. So if you don't have a smartphone and use push, you can't use it on our VPN.
your audio is cutting out, Ben.
Oh, that's speakers plugged in. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
So what I was saying, we kind of have it set up two ways. I don't know how much of that you heard. For Citrix, we give multiple options. So you have several different ways you can connect. With our VPN, the way it's set up, we only allow smartphones. You have to have a smartphone to use our VPN, and you have to use push.
Okay.
With Citrix, we give you 4 or 5 different ways, as Matthew was saying.
Okay. And from Tim Knowles here in the chat, he said that Cisco's given a free unlimited use for Duo for 90 days for COVID-19. So I think I'm going to try that out. If anybody else wants to, that's great. I also have a question here. Is anyone using YubiKey for hardware-based authentication? Here's what it says they're using it right now. How are you liking it? It's good. Okay, that's good. I might try that as well. Yeah. Issue with the hardware token is your users will leave it connected.
Or end up not making a backup and then losing the actual key.
Honestly, when you say a hardware token, I was thinking like RSA used to have the little
Like a key fob.
yeah, with the LCD on it with numbers.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought that
what
would make
Duo
it
has.
Okay.
Key fob with the button and the numbers.
Okay. That's what I was thinking most to go with. Just because I've got some people who might not want to use their personal phones, and we don't issue phones to everyone, that kind of thing. But
That's how we were at Gaston. We got a bunch of the the key fobs as an option because we thought we'd have a lot more that would say, I don't want to install this on my phone. I'm not using my phone, blah, blah, blah.
Right, right.
And when we explained to them, like, if you install this on your phone, all you've got to hit is like, yes, this is me logging in. Otherwise, you have to type in this 6-digit code every time. Like, which would you prefer to do? And we had, I think, 2 users out of the entire county that decided they wanted the key fob. The rest were all like,
Okay.
oh, what's that?
The other thing we
Okay.
did was we told them, we'll give you the first one. The first one we're going to give you, but if you lose it, you need to replace it. It's going to be $25. So that kept a lot of people from, from wanting that as well. So you put some of the responsibility on the end user, and all of a sudden people don't need it as bad.
As
Yeah.
far as, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say we did a similar policy. Basically, we provide the first dongle, and if you lose it or something happens to it, then you or your department owe us. I think it's like $30.
Is that how much they are from Duo?
They're like $25 if you
Okay.
buy them in a pack. I think you have to buy a pack of 5 or something like that. They're 20 or $25. I mean, we didn't like, upcharge them too bad, I don't think, but we made it enough to where, it was inconvenient.
Yeah, and somebody in the chat says use conditional MFA so that they only need to do this if they're off-site, which I like because most of your attacks, well, they could come from within, but I'd say most of them are going to come from outside. So I've been hesitant. The best work from home idea that I've heard from here is the Citrix one, but I've been hesitant to allow anything like that from outside the network without two-factor authentication. I had started looking at moving to Office 365. We get kind of a skinny version of it for free as a library. We can get an E1 level as a library for free. And that would get me Outlook 365, whatever, the mail component of it. Right now, I still have an Exchange server, but I wanted to start moving everybody to OneDrive and things like that. I don't want to do that without MFA. Which leads me to another question that I have. I've been considering myself, once we move to OneDrive, blocking flash drives on our staff computers. Anybody else doing that? What was your experience? Pushback from users? How did you deal with it?
We did that for a short time. It did become kind of a logistical nightmare because of our users wanting to use cameras or other devices that a lot of operating systems see as mass storage devices. Then you end up having to go in and put in a lot of exceptions, in the group policy for hardware keys, and then if you do allow any kind of, if you say you allow a specific kind of hardware key, across different manufacturing dates, the components change, so it sees it as a different device and not the same. Like even though they're the same brand, they look exactly the same. Some chip inside of it might be different. So we ended up like spending so much time updating group policy and trying to make the things that we actually needed people to use to work, that it ended up just being a really an administrative nightmare for us. Now that being said, I mean, we're not a huge county, but we do have about 1,200 users. Where I don't know how big, how many users you're working with. It may not be such a logistical nightmare for you. What we did end up doing at one point was just buying those hardware secure USB keys where you had to put in a code and then put those in, allowing those. But again, it became a kind of an administrative nightmare to manage. So I don't know if anybody else is doing that.
That's what I've been fearing is the nightmare from cameras and things. Take a digital camera and you want to get your pictures off of it. Users get frustrated real quick if they can't.
Right. Yeah. And then you're just creating more work for yourself by running around and having to put it in to make sure that one thing can work or something. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't rolled it out countywide, but we have our 911 center locked down.
Yeah, that makes sense. That is the place to do it. And we have somebody in the chat here, so they all say in Winston-Salem, Tim Knoll said he had a lot of pushback as well. Yeah, you get to urgent calls for somebody with a presentation at the last minute. They call because they can't get it showed. Yeah. Anybody else? How about next gen AV? What's everybody using this? Good cost efficient there.
I don't know about cost efficient, but Carbon
It's hard
Black
to find
has-
next gen AV that's cost efficient.
Carbon Black has been awesome. We've been on that for about a year.
I'm sorry, say that again. You said Carbon Black is cost efficient?
No, I said I
Oh.
not cost efficient,
Oh.
but its product is excellent.
Okay.
Yeah, we've looked at them a few times, and they're they're very proud of their product.
It is really good though. That's one of the few things I can point to and say, yep, that's worth the spend on that one.
Yeah, here in Greer, we've switched to Cylance, and I haven't looked back. Again, it's not cost efficient, but the product has been excellent. Had absolutely zero issues out of it.
Is anybody using Cortex out there at all, or Traps? Used to be Traps, now Cortex from Palo Alto.
I've considered Traps because since I do have the Palo Alto firewall, but again, that price tag has kept me away from it.
Yeah, it was looking kind of attractive to us until they added that data lake piece, and then it was really, yeah, like you said, scary. So.
Yeah.
How about Fortinet? Anyone using that? I asked because I will be soon. Just wonder if anyone's happy with it. Traps, Fortinet, Checkpoint.
Yeah, City of Wilson uses Fortinet.
Are you happy with it?
Yeah, we're really happy with it. We were on the FortiGate firewalls, the sandboxes, the FortiEmail, and we're just launched our new FortiDeceptor product. And then
Okay.
we're using the Forti clients through FortiEMS.
Okay.
But yeah, we're really happy with it. We've been with them using Fortinet for about 10 years now.
A couple of years ago, I made a mistake of buying a Cisco Firepower. And this year, once we get our new budget year going, it's already been approved, so I'm hoping it sticks. I've got an E-rate funded project to get a switch over from the Cisco Firepower to a Fortinet. And when I do that, I'm going to be moving from Symantec endpoint protection, which I've had in place for as long as I've been there. I've been there since 2002 when I started and inherited it. And not even using everything it can do because it's just a very bloated product. But once I get that Fortinet in, I'm going to that. Anyone else?
Trying to think, we were looking at another one similar to Cortex, and I can't remember. Sentinel-1, I think it was. Is anybody using that one?
Some others listed here for Palo Alto, CrowdStrike. Sentinel-1. Who makes Sentinel-1? Is that their own product or is it from a different company?
Yeah, it's their own product. Does somebody
Okay.
say they're using that? Or no?
Yeah, Adam in the chat. I'm not sure where he's from.
Speak up, Adam. Tell us about it.
Davidson County. If you have a mic, Adam, we'd love to hear about it because we'd love. Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been using Sentinel-1 for a couple of years now. We've been really happy with it. The web-based management they have is pretty easy. It can do USB monitoring. It tells you what programs are out of date and all sorts of things. It's a pretty good product. As far as detections, it seems to pick up very well. I currently have it set to do a full scan anytime it's installed or upgraded, which has helped find a lot of potentially unwanted applications and whatnot. So we like it pretty good.
Have you, I think I remember you guys had is this that you found this after the breach you guys had, or did you guys have this in place?
Yeah, we had Symantec endpoint protection when we were breached.
Okay.
It did
And
nothing.
has this, have you seen from SentinelOne any kind of, has it caught anything that kind of gave you guys some pause again, that if you thought, hey, if we had Symantec still, we'd be in trouble right now?
Yeah, it's actually caught quite a few things, especially on our public computers at the libraries and things, where people will try to click on
Right.
everything they can. But yeah,
Right.
it's really good at catching stuff.
Okay.
I've recently turned on the command line and PowerShell monitoring, so it'll actually log what is done in those and also block anything that's trying to run in there. So, yeah.
Do you see any kind of effect in that from like a processing standpoint? Does it slow the machines down at all, or is it pretty
There was
lightweight?
a bug in the previous version that caused it to use quite a bit of memory, but I just upgraded it to the next patch, and that seemed to fix it. But other than that, it's very low on resources as far as I can tell.
Okay. From an implementation standpoint, how was that? Was that pretty straightforward, pretty easy? Do you guys have ProServe or do all that in house?
We have a PDQ deploy, and we just pushed it out everywhere. For the updates, you can either update it through PDQ again, or you can do it from the web console, send a notification to the machine that there's an upgraded package.
You mentioned the public computers in your library. As part of this being closed for COVID, I have taken the time to take our whole network to Windows 10. And since I was having to reimage everything in the process, I actually have now finally created an entire separate domain for our public computers, completely walled off with its own PDQ deploy server, so that if it gets infected, it will not affect my staff computers or my databases or anything like that. And if you have the resources or time to do that, I'd recommend that. For the antivirus on that, I just decided to let Windows run its, should be Windows Defender. Not sure what they call it now. It might be that. Whatever Windows 10 has built in, I've heard it's pretty good. So I'm just letting the public computers do that and not have to buy any AV licenses for those. They have deep freeze anyway, so when they reboot, whatever's there goes away.
I tell you, I ran some sandboxed testing against the Windows Defender or
Yeah.
whatever it's called again, versus Symantec, versus Bitdefender, and one other. I think Avast, and the Windows Defender beat every one of them except Bitdefender.
Wow. The only problem with the Windows one is unless, from what I've been able to understand, unless you use SCCM, there is no centralized management. So you could have computers getting infected and you don't know it because it's not going to send you a notification. And I don't have SCCM, so that's the only.
So I don't know.
Yeah. But again, now that I've split everything off, if a worm ran through the public computers, they all have deep freeze. You just reboot them all and they're going to be back to where they started. So, and someone mentioned Sophos, that it was given a lot of alerts for things that aren't real. That's a problem I've had with Symantec. It seems to just a lot of things that are not viruses it thinks are. It doesn't want to let me run them. Which, err on the positive is good, but when it's happening to users, documents, and things, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, on the subject of libraries, we're planning to do I guess a somewhat unique situation with ours. So we're going to replace all the public workstations with thin clients running the Stratadesk No Touch OS. And then we're going to have virtual machines that are all running on a DMZ network that don't have access to the rest of our network. So when the library starts up, they'll get a new virtual machine, and when they close down at the end of the day, it'll be wiped out and a new one will be spun up.
Yeah, that's pretty good. What are you using for the desktops themselves? Or is that the Raspberry Pis?
Well, so we're hoping to reuse the existing hardware because you can install the Stratadesk OS.
Oh, okay.
So we're if anything needs to be replaced, we probably will be doing Pis just because of how cheap they are. Because you can get a kit of everything you need for like $100.
Mhm.
But we're hoping to reuse the existing hardware and just get rid of Windows and just have the Stratadesk OS on there.
I'll have to look into that. The problem I've got is that we have so many, and we've removed a lot of public computers because of COVID. When we reopened, we want everyone to be spaced out, but the grants have dried up for things like that and for replacing public computers. And I think my newest public computers are about 5 years old. And at some point, they're going to have to be replaced. So this Raspberry Pi, we're talking about Raspberry Pi is really giving me something to look into for that. That'd be great for a library.
Yeah, that's part of the reason that we found the benefit in the No Touch OS is what it's called. Because if you do have hardware that's hitting end of life, but you don't really have the funding to replace it, just turn it into a thin client until it dies.
Mm-hmm.
What about I guess mobile device management? What do you guys? I've recently, well, I say recently, I've lost the iPad fight at the county, and a lot of people are starting to get them. We're not really. Commissioners had them. We kind of did. We're using Meraki. Commissioners had them. We do a lot of policy management in there, but we're starting to get a lot more of them, and we don't really. All we're really doing is kind of tracking them, but we do have policies down on some of them. What are you guys using from a mobile device management standpoint? Again, not breaking the bank.
We're
We've been
using
using-
the Meraki MDM. We actually are on the legacy license. So we were a Meraki MDM before Cisco bought them or before they changed their licensing. So we have better than basic, but not as good as, paid. I guess better than free, but not as good as paid.
Yeah.
We've been using Mass 360 through Verizon for doing device management. I can't say I recommend it. We just had a situation where I had to mark a phone as lost. And then when we went to mark it found again, Mass 360 basically wouldn't do it. The phone became a brick until we removed it from Mass 360.
We're a Google shop, and they have the MDM built into the G Suite licensing, so we've utilized that. I have not lost the iPad battle yet, so
So
we're
jealous.
fortunate on that one.
Yeah, we've also lost all battles. Our DSS just ordered 40 new iPhones to replace iPads so they could give the iPads to other people. So I feel your pain.
Yeah, we just actually got our first iPhone in the county, I believe, like 2 weeks ago. So yeah, it's coming.
So when y'all say the battle, you mean just not having them at all versus
Correct.
because all I've ever purchased for her employees are now I'm doing this thing here on a MacBook Pro, so I'm an Apple guy, but I've only ever purchased iPhones and iPads for staff. I found them a lot easier to manage.
We're an iPhone shop for our mobiles because they're basically the Fisher Price of cell phones.
Exactly.
Well, for a long time, staff that needed phones just got flip phones. and that made it very easy. But now everyone has to have a smartphone, which helped with the deployment of Duo, because if they've got a county issued phone, then you can just push it out with the Meraki MDM. I will say, for people who are looking or just getting into deploying Apple devices in their environment, and you have an MDM such as Meraki MDM, I would highly recommend setting up Apple Business Manager.
Oh yeah.
And configuring it with the MDM so that when the device shows up, it's already configured on your MDM, and when it boots up, it just grabs your settings that you set for it. So in some cases, you can actually just have the phone sent to the person, and it's configured when they boot it up.
Is that something you set up, or is that something, because we do set something up, when we order at CDW, if we order from CDW or whoever, the iPads, it comes already registered in Apple, and then we can import that in our MDM. Is that what you're talking about, or is this something you do on your end as well? I'm not familiar with this.
Yeah, so our Apple Business Manager is tied to the MDM. So when the device is ordered through Verizon, in our case, it's automatically added to our Apple Business account, and then it gets added to the MDM when it boots up. And we do a managed Apple ID through Apple Business Manager. So the only apps they can download are the ones we allow through the MDM.
Okay. We do some of that kind of policy management through Meraki as well, where we kind of lock it down. But like I said, in the case of the commissioners or somebody like that, it's the Wild West, man. They get what they want, right? So.
In the chat, somebody mentioned Apple DEP, the Device Enrollment Program. That's been rolled into Business Manager now.
Okay.
Apple DEP and Apple VPP, the Volume Purchase Program for purchasing apps at a corporate level, that has been rolled into what Apple calls Apple Business Manager. And that's what you're talking about. The DEP is the what you were talking about, where you order from CDWG and it's automatic. Yeah. Apple Business Manager does that now, as long as your vendor, we have it with Verizon, and I can order iPads straight from Apple. And when they show up, no matter what, if they're stolen in transit, when it's turned on, I'll know because it shows up in my MDM. You pair the MDM to the device in Apple Business Manager as soon as it's shipped, and it then becomes yours, and nobody else they can't just erase it. And even if you do a drop it into the mode where you do a factory restore, DFU, you can't and reinstall the software. When it comes back up and it checks in with Apple, it's automatically going to check their servers, know that this is Shepherd Moore Library's iPhone, and no matter what, they can't get it out of our MDM.
Yeah, we actually had a situation where one of our shipments was stolen, and we turned GPS on the phones and found where they were located, and it was not in any of our buildings.
Mm-hmm. And for MDM, I was using the free Meraki MDM, and when we went into Meraki, it was part of Cisco already, but it was in the early stages. My first order, I still had some equipment that had just the Meraki logo on it, and slowly they've removed enough features that it just got to the point that it was terrible, and I started evaluating different MDMs. I ended up with one called Simple MDM that I had never heard of, but they claimed a lot of big corporations as their customers, and on their website, and it's worked out pretty well. I think it ends up being about $2.50. Let's see. It's $3 a month if you pay monthly. It's $30 a year if you pay for a device for a year upfront. And I'm using it to manage iPads and iPhones, and I've been pretty happy with it. Sometimes there's some issues updating apps. I don't like that they don't have a catalog for users. I've seen that like Intune has a catalog that you can build where users can go download their own apps if you approve them. I have to purchase apps through the business manager and then push them to the devices if users request them. They can't just go in, even though I've done the Office 365 suite, got licenses for all of us. They can't just go in and download it. They have to request it, and then I'd push it to their phone. And I'm going to go back a little in the chat. Somebody mentioned, let's see, where was it? I can't find it. Somebody did ask about a main reseller for Apple products. I've been buying, we buy our iPhones from Verizon, who's our carrier, but I've been buying iPads directly from Apple. They have a fairly nice government discount that is cheaper than at least our price level at CDWG.
CDWG is always our highest quote.
Yeah, they often are. I have a love-hate relationship with CDWG. I've bought so much from them that it's easy to get what I need, but at the same time, they are always the
I
highest.
use CDWG for budgetary quotes and then go elsewhere for when I need to purchase.
I like that. That's the thing about their website is it's so easy to get with the prices that you want. You don't have to go through a sales rep directly to get every single price. I got a couple other things that I thought I'd ask everybody about. One is something that a couple of years ago, NIST came out with new password standards where you make long passwords and keep them for a year or whatever. And I have been so hesitant to do that because it's just against everything that I've always learned and everything I've always preached. And I'm just wondering if anyone else has done that and how you feel about it.
We have in Gaston County at the beginning of the year we moved from 90-day complex password expiration to passphrases 16 character plus. You can make it as long as you want, I guess, up to a certain thing. But, it has to be at least 16 characters. It has to have three out of four capital letter number, symbol, lowercase. So it has to have at least three of those four. Cat man. And we did about a 2-month educational campaign leading up to this. So we did a lot of posters that we hung around the county, about kind of letting them know it was coming, letting them know why we were doing it. And then we did using KnowBe4. You said you do the phishing thing. I don't know if you do any of the push out training as well. We did training campaigns where we had users do all the, like password idle and some password games. And, so we kind of pushed it out there, to let them know. And, we let them know the benefits of it, right? Hey, we said it never expire. We're not even doing yearly right now. So we may revisit that, but we've only been doing it since January. But hey, instead of having to change your password every 90 days, you get one password. The games and the education taught them how to make a good one, not to make it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever.
Yeah.
And we had, honestly, man, we had zero pushback. We have 1,200 users. We had no complaints about it. So for us, it's been great. Because a lot of our tickets were password reset tickets, people forgetting, or people locking, putting in on their Outlook on their phone, and then that password expiring and locking them out because they didn't change that when their password expired. So for us, it's been great. I'd be interested in seeing if any other counties have been doing it. It's been one of the best things we've done.
Well, we went that route also. Right now it's 12 characters minimum complexity, and I'm only doing 180 days though. I haven't pushed it out to a year yet.
Yeah, we did the same thing. The initial rollout was a bit of a nightmare. It increased our help desk call volume quite a bit, which I like for the numbers, but be utilizing KnowBe4 as well and doing that required training at least twice a year. Help tell our users and explain why we're doing this. Of course, there's a lot of grumbles. Well, I'm barely remembering my password now, and it's like, well, once you see when cities and other industries get hit, and they've got multi-million-dollar fees that they're paying for buying additional equipment and all. Do you want that to happen here? Because we can trace it back to see whose system got hit, and they're like, oh, well, okay, well then we'll start changing our password, adding complexity to it. And that justification has helped quite a bit. So now we get not that many help desk tickets now for password resets, but I do feel more secure about our system with users understanding and acknowledging, yeah, we see why we need to do this and doing it. Probably next year we'll increase. We're doing 12 character minimum right now. We'll probably increase that to 16. Get a few more gripes and grumbles initially, but I think it'll be okay.
How long are your expirations, Jim?
We're doing them every 90 days.
90 days now, okay.
And you cannot reuse the last, I think we have it set for 10 passwords.
Okay.
Yeah, we're doing 21.
Ooh.
Yeah, and for me and my IT staff, we're not saying the word password anymore. We're making sure that when we communicate, we're saying passphrase.
It's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, one thing to note, if you have compliance issues like PCI, HIPAA, whatever, a lot of those rules have not caught up to the passphrase standard. So you'll get dinged on your audit if you're not doing the expirations at 90 days or some of these things, even though the recommendations from NIST and everyone else is to do it the new way. Just a note for that.
Has anybody rolled out password managers at an enterprise level? My county manager asked me to look into it. I'm kind of hesitant to even go that route, but I'm curious to hear any success or horror stories.
We're using LastPass as a department, just for the IT department, and that's what we're recommending to our end users, but we haven't pushed it out to our end users or required it yet.
Is that
I'm also-
LastPass keeping those passwords locally, or is that being stored up in the cloud somewhere?
It is cloud.
I'm a little, we've started looking at password administrators like that. I'm kind of hesitant about having my password stored up in the cloud. I'm sure it's secure, but I don't know who has access to it, who's hit it. At least if it's on-prem, I feel a little bit better about some control over it. I do like the features that they offer. I think it would definitely help our users, especially not having to remember all these long character passwords. But just cloud-based, still a little uncomfortable with that.
Yeah, Jim, for us in the IT department, we're using, it's called KeePass, KeePass. And it's just a locally stored database that we use for like our service account, passwords, things like that. Same kind of reason, like we don't necessarily want all of that information up in the cloud. It's very simple, but it works.
I'm thinking about using KeePass, but kind of in a private cloud for myself. Put it on a NAS somewhere that I can access, even if it's sitting in my house or something, just through a branch, some way I can access it over the internet if I am remote and need it and my main network is down. But I too am using Cloud Password Manager, and it makes me uncomfortable for the same reasons you said, Jim. It's just I don't like knowing that it's out there.
It's got something I do is kind of, it's like a low budget, I guess, solution for what you were saying is I sync our KeePass database from the server to my local laptop. So when I'm on site and I don't have access, I still can get the passwords for like switches or whatever. And I just use
That's
like
a good idea.
Yeah. I set up a sync. So every day, every, I think hour when I'm at the office, it keeps it synced up to my local laptop.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, I'm going to put that in mind. I didn't know it could do that. Well, I haven't looked into KeyPass enough to understand it. I knew it wasn't like a client server based thing. But so I didn't really completely understand how it works yet. But.
Yeah, it's just like a local database file. It's honestly like an Access database, basically, that sits wherever you put it, and the software you point to that database. And so I just use like a free sync tool myself to sync.
Okay.
I keep
So
a
you're
copy
just
of it
syncing
on
that
my
file.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I keep a copy of it on my phone as well. So there's a phone app, and you can sync it up to your phone as well. And I do that. I keep it on my phone. It's a little bit more of a manual process. I just update it about once a month, but so I have a copy of it on my phone as well in case something happens.
You don't need those passwords anyway, Ben. You just text us when things break.
I need the gate code to get to the top of the mountain so I can watch fireworks.
I had one other question before we go. And this is definitely a security on a budget kind of thing. Anyone using AppLocker built into Windows, not using an AV to whitelist, but using Windows itself? It said monitor only, yeah. Just to monitor what's been going on. Okay. That's something that I've been thinking about doing just because that's a really easy, don't have to, management's difficult. Yeah, that's the thing that I've been worried about. Managing every little process that has to run as part of every single app.
And I have one more that I just thought of going back to the MDM conversation. Something that Travis and I are looking at is using multi-factor authentication internally for our admin users when they remote desktop to a server, adding that extra layer of security there. Is using Duo for that as well. Is anybody out there doing any kind of multi-factor authentication to get to your local servers inside your own network?
We're looking at doing that very soon.
Same.
No one's trying that yet, though. Because our concern was we have our application development group had brought up, I guess, their the inconvenience of having to use that every on patch nights where we're patching 50, 75 servers of having to do that. And we've talked about maybe doing a bypass for those nights and making it where you don't have to do it on those nights. But I'd wonder if anybody else had kind of implemented anything like that yet, and how they got around that, if they were doing something like that on patch nights, or they got pushback from some of their admins or anything.
So
We're actually working on that.
Go ahead.
We use a YubiKey and Duo for administrator account, but we have another administrator account that we use for other tasks.
You have separate user accounts you have multiple admin accounts for what you're doing?
Well, we have one for routine tasks, and then we have one for the big tasks that everyone should be using to log on. If like say you need to log on to the administrator at someone else's desk besides your own, you have to stick a YubiKey in and grant user access if you're logging in as a domain admin.
Okay.
I have a separate. Oh, go ahead.
And I'll say, you can just disable you can disable that and re-enable it on patch night whenever. Keep the other user account disabled.
Okay.
I have a desktop admin username, a server admin. Desktop admin only has admin rights on endpoints. The server admin username only has admin rights on member servers, and then a domain admin. And I use each one as appropriate so that if one's lost, you can't just kill the whole network. And Matthew, I think you were about to say something a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah, so we did some testing with deploying Duo for computer login and server logins. We haven't deployed it yet. Some of the gotchas that we saw early on and we're still looking at is that one of the inconvenient factors, and that's all it is is that when you lock down a login with Duo, every time the screen locks or you have to unlock it, you also have to do Duo every time. So it's not just the initial login you have to use Duo, is anytime your screensaver pops up, for example, if you have locking enabled, you have to do it every time the screen locks,
Yeah.
which is a hard selling point, I think, is for some people, but we may use it as a driving point because it's not a case with our virtual environment. So if they get too complainy, they can go to virtual.
Yeah, I've had that problem. I looked at some technology. There was a way you could use your phone, but everybody don't have a counted cell phone. But like if your phone's near your computer, then it'll unlock, and then when you take it with you, it automatically locks back.
What was that? What do you remember what that was called?
Actually, I think it's a feature inside of Windows, but you have to have the right version. One
Okay.
issue, we use LTSC for a lot of us, but I think you have to have Pro to do it.
Okay.
I think it's built into that part where you can sync Windows to your phone to pick up after, you know, a website, say, oh, I want to send that to my phone or whatnot. I think it's built into the same packaging there where you can say, if my phone's NFC is on and it's near my desktop, it's going to unlock. But if you leave the NFC field from your desktop, it automatically locks you back.
Okay.
All right. Well, everyone, we've already been here an hour, used up our time. I really appreciate everyone coming. This has been a great conversation.
As I want to thank everyone for coming too. I want to thank StorageCraft for sponsoring this session. Don't forget to go and hang out in the virtual lobby and visit some of the vendors if you haven't yet. They're the reason we get to do this, and even virtually, you know, they're helping us out. So don't forget to stop by and say hey to them. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Everyone. Bye.